The human diplomat, Vincent Allen, warned the alien leaders of the Galactic Council touch a scale on the Binar backs, and humanity's retribution will end your species. The chamber fell silent as they absorbed his grim promise. An urgent distress call had interrupted the Council's routine. On the screen, Bellows, the elder of the reclusive Binars, revealed that his species was on the brink of extinction. A mysterious disaster had ravaged their world, wiping out most of the population. Many council members were indifferent, reluctant to help, but Vincent felt compelled to act. He led a delegation to the Binar homeworld, where they found apocalyptic destruction cities crumbled, toxic waste covered the land, and desperate survivors huddled in shelters. Vincent was deeply moved and proposed that humanity establish a sanctuary for the Binar refugees, offering resources and protection to help them rebuild their civilization. This offer brought Bellows to tears, forging a strong bond of friendship between the two leaders. Back at the council, some members dismissed the Binar's plight as unimportant, worried that showing favoritism would cause problems. Vincent, however, argued passionately that the galaxy had a moral duty to aid those in need. On the sanctuary world, humans and Binars worked together, rebuilding side by side. Two cultures became one, even as shadowy forces in the Council's halls conspired to destroy the fragile human-Binar alliance, seeing the Binars as mere pawns in their power games. The battle lines were drawn as Vincent and his allies fought for compassion in a cold universe. The future of human-Binar cooperation and the very fate of a species hung in the balance. Despite the growing cynicism and hostility, their bond would be tested to the breaking point and beyond. The fuse was lit for an epic conflict that could reshape the galaxy forever. Vincent stood on the balcony of the sanctuary's administrative center, gazing out over the settlement below, where Binar refugees and human volunteers worked together. The air was filled with determined activity and a palpable sense of purpose. Lilani, with her lilac skin shimmering in the sun, appeared at his side. "It's truly remarkable what you've accomplished here in such a short time," she said. Vincent nodded, a weary smile on his lips. "We couldn't have done it without your support in the council," but Lilani warned him that Kravis and his cronies were out for blood. They feared the changes that the sanctuary represented a new paradigm they were not ready to accept. Bellows emerged from the building, his aged features etched with a mixture of gratitude and concern. He pointed out disturbing energy signatures on their homeworld, suggesting that the disaster might have been an attack. As they prepared to present this information to the council, word came that Kravis had called an emergency session, demanding the immediate cessation of human aid to the Binars. Vincent steeled himself for the fight ahead, knowing that the Binars were now more than just refugees. They were friends and partners in a vision for a better galaxy. On Refuge, the work continued, with the bonds of friendship and shared purpose growing stronger each day. But in the shadows, unseen forces gathered, determined to shatter the fragile peace and plunge the galaxy into chaos. The battle for the future had only just begun. The attack on the refugee settlement came without warning. One moment, the air was filled with the sounds of construction and the chatter of Binar and human voices. The next, explosions ripped through the air, sending plumes of smoke and debris skyward. Vincent was jolted awake, the acrid stench of burning metal filling his nostrils. He raced to the window, eyes widening at the chaos below as figures in dark armor swarmed through the streets, cutting down Binar and human alike with energy weapons. Nolan burst into the room, his face grim. "We're under attack, unknown hostiles, well-armed and organized," he reported. Vincent nodded, already reaching for his communicator. "Bellows, what's your status?" The Binar leader's voice crackled through the speaker, barely audible over the sounds of battle. "They've hit us hard, Vincent. We're holding them back for now, but we need your help." Vincent turned to Nolan. "Gather your team. We need to get out there and push these bastards back." They raced through the command center's corridors as explosions rocked the ground nearby. Outside, the air was thick with smoke and the cries of the wounded. Nolan barked orders to his security team as they fanned out, taking up defensive positions around the perimeter. Vincent sprinted towards the front lines, his heart pounding in his chest. He found Bellows crouched behind a makeshift barricade, directing a group of Binar defenders. The elder's robes were torn and stained with blood, but his eyes blazed with determination. "They're pressing in from the east," Bellows shouted over the din of battle. "We're doing what we can, but their weapons are too strong." Vincent raised his own rifle, sighting down the barrel at a group of advancing attackers. He squeezed the trigger, watching with grim satisfaction as the energy bolt found its mark, sending an armored figure tumbling to the ground. For hours they fought, the streets of Refuge transforming into a brutal battleground. Nolan and his team worked in seamless coordination with the Binar defenders, slowly beating back the enemy's advance. But the cost was high. The ground was littered with the bodies of the fallen, human and Binar alike. As the last of the attackers fled into the surrounding hills, Vincent stood amidst the smoking ruins, his chest heaving with exertion and grief. Nolan approached, his armor scorched and dented. "We found something," the commander said, holding out a twisted piece of metal bearing a Zoran insignia. "And this," he added, handing Vincent a small data drive. "Schematics, troop movements. This was a planned attack, and I'd bet my last credit that Kravis is behind it." Vincent furrowed his eyebrows, a cold fury settling in his gut. "Gather what evidence you can. I need to address the council." Hours later, he stood before the assembled representatives, his uniform still stained with the blood of his fallen comrades. The chamber was silent as he spoke, his voice low and fierce. "Today our friends and allies were attacked without provocation, an act of war carried out by those who fear what we represent: unity, cooperation, a future where we stand together." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But let me be clear, the Binars are under humanity's protection. Any further acts of aggression against our friends will be met with swift and decisive action." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some raised in support, others in protest. But Vincent stood firm, his gaze locked with Kravis across the room. The battle lines had been drawn, and he would not rest until the Binars were safe and those responsible for this atrocity were brought to justice. On Refuge, the work of rebuilding began anew. The dead were mourned, the wounded tended to. Nolan and his team took up permanent residence, working to bolster the settlement's defenses and train a new generation of Binar warriors. But even as they labored to heal the scars of battle, Vincent knew that this was only the beginning. The Zoran and their allies would not rest until the human-Binar alliance was shattered. Days later, a sleek Atrian vessel touched down on Refuge's newly reconstructed landing pad. Runa, the lead Atrian engineer, strode down the ramp, her silver eyes taking in the bustling settlement. Nolan greeted her with a crisp salute. "Welcome to Refuge, Ma Am. We're honored to have you here." Runa returned the gesture, a hint of a smile on her lips. "The honor is mine, Commander. I've heard much about your tactical prowess. I look forward to working together." As they walked through the settlement, Runa's gaze darted from building to building, her mind already calculating. "Your current defenses are adequate, but we can do better, much better." Nolan raised an eyebrow. "I'm all ears." In the command center, holograms flickered to life, displaying schematics of advanced energy shields and weapon systems. Runa's fingers danced over the controls, explaining each innovation with rapid-fire precision. Nolan leaned in, his eyes alight with interest. "These shield harmonics, they're unlike anything I've seen before." Runa nodded. "They'll be able to withstand concentrated fire from multiple Zoran cruisers. And these plasma cannons, they'll cut through their armor like butter." As the days passed, Refuge was transformed. Atrian technology meshed seamlessly with human and Binar systems. The settlement buzzed with activity as new defenses took shape. Nolan and Runa worked tirelessly, their initial professional respect blossoming into genuine admiration. Late one night, as they pored over defense grid simulations, Nolan noticed Runa's hand trembling slightly. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked, concern etching his features. Runa blinked, as if coming out of a trance. I'm not sure." Nolan stood, offering his hand. "Come on, there's a great little spot that serves both human and Atrian cuisine. My treat." Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, Vincent fought a different kind of battle. He stood before the assembled representatives, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "The evidence is irrefutable. The Zoran attack on Refuge was unprovoked and in clear violation of Council law. We cannot allow such aggression to go unchallenged." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber as Vincent's impassioned arguments and the damning evidence swayed several neutral council members. But Kravis, the Zoran representative, rose to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury. "This is outrageous. The humans are turning a refugee crisis into an arms race. They're the ones violating council protocols." Before Vincent could respond, a flash of movement caught his eye. A cloaked figure in the gallery raised an energy weapon, aiming directly at him. Time seemed to slow as Vincent's muscles tensed, knowing he couldn't possibly dodge in time. But suddenly, a shimmering force field sprang to life around him, the energy blast impacting harmlessly, dissipating in a shower of sparks. Lilani stood nearby, her hands outstretched, maintaining the protective barrier. Security forces swarmed the chamber, but the assassin had already vanished. As the council erupted into chaos, Vincent locked eyes with Kravis, the Zoran's face a mask of cold fury, but there was something else there to fear. Vincent knew then that the gloves were off. The Zoran would stop at nothing to destroy what he and his allies had built. But he was ready for them. Back on Refuge, the final pieces of the new defense system fell into place. Nolan oversaw combat drills, watching with pride as human and Binar forces worked in perfect sync with the Atrian technology. Bellows observed from a nearby hill, his aged features etched with a mixture of awe and unease. Vincent approached, placing a hand on the Binar leader's shoulder. "What troubles you?" Old friend Bellows sighed. "We are grateful for all you've done, Vincent, but I sense a change in my people. They speak of vengeance, of reclaiming our lost world. I fear we may be losing something of ourselves in this transformation." Vincent nodded solemnly. "Change is never easy, but remember why we fight: not for revenge, but for a future where all our peoples can thrive together." As the sun set over Refuge, casting long shadows across the fortified settlement, Vincent gathered his allies. Humans, Binars, and Atrians stood side by side as he addressed them. "Today we formalize our alliance. From this moment on, an attack on one of us is an attack on all. We stand united against those who would threaten our vision of a peaceful, cooperative galaxy." Cheers erupted from the crowd, but even as they celebrated, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The true test of their alliance was yet to come. The celebration of their new alliance was cut short as Bellows approached Vincent, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Vincent, I need to speak with you privately," he said, his voice low and urgent. In the command center, Bellows revealed the true purpose behind his recent isolation. "I've been investigating the calamity that struck our homeworld," he explained, activating a holographic display of fragmented data. "Something doesn't add up." Vincent leaned in, studying the flickering images. "What are you getting at?" Bellows. Before the Binar leader could respond, Runa entered the room, her silver eyes gleaming with excitement. "Bellows, I've completed the analysis you requested," she said, nodding respectfully to Vincent, "and I think you need to see this." The Atrian engineer's fingers danced over the controls, overlaying her findings onto Bellows's data. Complex energy signatures and tachyon distortions materialized, forming a pattern that made Vincent's blood run cold. This wasn't a natural disaster," he breathed, the implications hitting him like a physical blow. Bellows nodded grimly. "It appears our world was the target of a deliberate attack, one of unimaginable power and precision." The room fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over them. Vincent's mind raced, considering the far-reaching consequences of such a discovery. He activated his communicator. "Nolan, Lilani, I need you in the command center now." As Vincent brought the others up to speed, Runa continued to analyze the data. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, she explained, her voice tight with concentration, but I've managed to isolate a unique quantum resonance. With more time and resources, we might be able to trace it back to its source. Nolan's eyes narrowed. You're talking about mounting an expedition to Covert 1, Vincent agreed, already formulating a plan. We need answers, and we need them without tipping our hand to whoever's behind this. Leilani stepped forward, her holographic form shimmering with purpose. I'll inform the Atrian High Council. They'll want to be part of this over the next few days. Preparations were made in utmost secrecy. A state-of-the-art stealth vessel was outfitted with the latest in cloaking and sensor technology. Nolan handpicked a team of elite operatives, blending the unique strengths of humans, Binars, and Atria. As the ship prepared for launch, Vincent addressed the assembled crew. What you discover out there could change everything we thought we knew about the balance of power in our galaxy. Trust each other, watch each other's backs, and come home safe. Nolan clasped Vincent's arm in a warrior's grip. We won't let you down as the stealth vessel shimmered out of view. Streaking toward the uncharted sector, Vincent turned his attention to the Galactic Council. It was time to go on the offensive. In the council chambers, Vincent stood before the assembled representatives, his face a mask of grim determination. Esteemed colleagues, new evidence has come to light regarding the Binar calamity evidence that suggests a deliberate attack. The chamber erupted into chaos. Kravis leapt to his feet, his voice cutting through the din. Preposterous. The humans seek to distract us from their own warmongering, but as Vincent presented the carefully curated data, murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. Even some of Kravis's staunchest allies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Meanwhile, light years away, Nolan's team dropped out of FTL on the edge of the uncharted sector. Runa's voice crackled over the comm. I'm detecting faint traces of the energy signature plotting a course now as they ventured deeper into unknown space. The sensor readings grew stronger. Tension mounted on the bridge as a massive structure slowly materialized on their view screens, a construct of impossible scale and alien design. Nolan leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. What in the name of all that's holy is that? Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Runa's hands flew over her console. We're being scanned by some kind of quantum pulse, our cloaking field is. The rest of her words were drowned out as a brilliant energy beam lanced out from the structure, enveloping their vessel in a blinding light. As the crew braced for impact, they realized with mounting horror that they had stumbled upon something far beyond their worst fears, a power that could reshape the very fabric of the galaxy itself. The blinding light engulfed the ship, bathing the bridge in an eerie glow. Nolan gripped his console, bracing for impact. But instead of destruction, they felt a strange tingling sensation as the energy beam washed over them. Status report, Nolan barked. Runa's fingers flew across her terminal, shields holding, but our cloaking field is completely offline. We're exposed before they could process this information. The ship rocked violently. Proximity alarms blared as multiple vessels suddenly appeared on their sensors. Evasive maneuvers, Nolan ordered. The pilot responded instantly, sending their ship into a series of wild spins and dives. Energy beams lanced past them, uncomfortably close. Unknown vessels, heavily armed, they're trying to disable us. Not destroy us, Runa called out over the chaos. Nolan's mind raced. They want us alive, plot a course out of here, maximum speed. As they desperately maneuvered through the barrage, a massive structure loomed before them, its alien architecture defying description, a fortress of impossible scale. That's our ticket out, Nolan declared. Use it for cover, we'll lose them in the superstructure. Their ship darted between towering spires and cavernous openings, the pursuing vessels hot on their tail. Alarms blared as their shields took hit after hit. We can't keep this up, Runa shouted over the chaos. Wait, I'm detecting a weakness in their formation. If we can a direct hit rock the ship, cutting off her words. Sparks erupted from consoles as systems overloaded. Shield's critical Abinar crew member reported. Another hit like that, and we're done for. Nolan made a split-second decision. All power to engines were punching through the ship surged forward, threading the needle between two pursuing vessels. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they might collide. Then they were past, streaking away from the mysterious outpost. As they limped to a safe distance, Nolan turned to Runa. What did we just stumble into? Her silver eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Something far bigger than we imagined. Commander and I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface. Back on the Galactic Council station, Vincent stood before the assembled representatives, his face grim. Esteemed colleagues, I bring grave news. Our expedition has uncovered evidence of a vast conspiracy, one that threatens the very foundation of galactic peace. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Kravis leapt to his feet, his voice dripping with contempt. More baseless accusations. The humans and their allies seek to destabilize the Council with these wild claims. But as Vincent presented the data transmitted by Nolan's team, even Kravis's staunchest supporters began to waver. The chamber erupted into chaos as accusations flew and alliances crumbled. In the midst of the uproar, Vincent noticed a subtle movement in the gallery. A cloaked figure raised an energy weapon, aiming directly at him. Time seemed to slow as Vincent's mind processed the imminent threat. Suddenly, Leilani was there, her Atrian guards forming a protective circle around them. The assassin's shot went wide, impacting harmlessly against a force field. Security forces swarmed the chamber, but the would-be killer had already vanished. As order was restored, Vincent locked eyes with Kravis. The Zoran's face was a mask of cold fury, but there was something else there to fear. Vincent knew then that they had struck a nerve. The conspiracy was real, and its tendrils reached further than anyone had imagined. But even as he began to form a plan, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Somewhere in the depths of space, Commander Nolan's damaged ship limped toward a rendezvous point. The information they carried could change the course of galactic history, but first, they had to survive long enough to deliver it. The transmission from Commander Nolan's ship cut off abruptly, leaving Vincent and the others in stunned silence. Before they could process the implications, alarms blared throughout the station. Multiple vessels dropping out of FTLA technicians shouted. They're powering weapons. Vincent's mind raced. It's the Cabal. They're making their move. Leilani's holographic form flickered as she accessed the defense grid. I'm activating our shields, but we're outnumbered. The station shuddered under the first barrage. Vincent grabbed his communicator. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. As chaos erupted around them, Vincent caught Kravis's eye. The Zoran's face was a mask of conflicting emotions. In that moment, Vincent made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. Kravis, he said, his voice cutting through the pandemonium, your people are formidable warriors. We need your help for a heartbeat. The chamber fell silent. Then Kravis nodded, a fierce grin spreading across his face. Zoran, to arms. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Former enemies fought side by side, united against a common threat. Vincent coordinated the defense from the command center, while Kravis led boarding parties to repel the attackers. Hours passed in a blur of explosions, acrid smoke, and desperate hand-to-hand combat. Just when it seemed the station might fall, reinforcements arrived. Commander Nolan's battered ship led the charge, flanked by a motley fleet of allied vessels. In the aftermath of the victory, as the full extent of the Cabal's infiltration became clear, Vincent addressed the assembled representatives. Today we faced an enemy that sought to tear us apart, but in doing so, they've brought us together in ways we never thought possible. His words were interrupted by a commotion at the chamber's entrance. Security forces dragged in a bound figure, Admiral Zoral, caught fighting alongside the Cabal's forces. Under intense questioning, Zoral's revelations sent shockwaves through the assembly. Decades of manipulation, manufactured crises, all designed to keep the cabal in power. Vincent watched as the weight of this betrayal settled over the chamber. He saw the moment when grit hardened in the eyes of those around him. The entire council must be dissolved, a Kronxian representative declared. We cannot trust any of the old guard. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Vincent stepped forward, his voice steady. Then we must forge a new path together. In the days that followed, Vincent and his allies found themselves thrust into positions of interim authority. They worked tirelessly to maintain order and root out cabal loyalists, all while navigating the complex politics of a galaxy in turmoil. To their surprise, support poured in from across council space. Even Kravis's Zoran pledged allegiance, seeing a chance for redemption. But not all welcomed this new order. On KRX Prime, dissenting voices grew louder, threatening open rebellion. As Vincent grappled with these challenges, an urgent message came through. Bellows had been attacked. The beloved Binar elder was now fighting for his life. Vincent rushed to the medical bay, his heart heavy. He found Runa there, her silver eyes filled with worry as she monitored Bellows's vital signs. "How is he?" Vincent asked softly. Runa shook her head. "It's too soon to tell, but Bellows is strong. He won't give up without a fight." Vincent placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. "Neither will we." Vincent's hand tightened on Runa's shoulder as they watched Bellows's vital signs fluctuate. The attack on the Binar elder had shaken them all, but there was no time to dwell on it. A chime from Vincent's communicator broke the tense silence. "Emergency transmission from refuge," the voice on the other end reported. "Multiple factions are demanding an immediate summit." Vincent exhaled slowly. "Tell them we're on our way." "Runa, keep me updated on Bellows's condition." As their ship approached refuge, Vincent gazed out at the swarm of vessels converging on the planet, representatives from countless worlds, all drawn by the power vacuum left in the wake of the Galactic Council's dissolution. The summit chamber buzzed with a cacophony of voices and translator units. Vincent took his place at the central podium, flanked by Commander Nolan and Lilani. As he began to speak, the room fell into an uneasy quiet. "We stand at a crossroads," Vincent said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "The old order has crumbled, but from its ashes we have an opportunity to build something greater." He outlined the proposal for a coalition of united systems, emphasizing the need for transparency and shared responsibility. As murmurs of discussion rippled through the crowd, a Kronxian delegate stood. "Pretty words," the delegate sneered. "But KRX Prime will not bow to human rule." The chamber's security system blared to life, cutting off the Kronxian's words. A holographic display materialized, showing a fleet officer's grim face. "Separatist forces have seized control of the Nexus trade routes," the officer reported, "and they're demanding the dissolution of this summit and recognition of their autonomy." Chaos erupted in the chamber. Vincent locked eyes with Nolan, a silent understanding passing between them. It was time for action. Hours later, Vincent stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the combined human, Atrian, and Binar fleet dropped out of FTL near the blockaded shipping lanes. The separatist vessels loomed before them, a motley assortment of retrofitted freighters and mothballed warships. "They're hailing us," a communications officer announced. The sneering face of a Kronxian captain filled the view screen. "Turn back now, or face the consequences of your..." Vincent cut the transmission. "All ships engage at will. Let's show them the strength of our unity." The battle unfolded with furious intensity. Despite being outgunned, the separatists fought with the desperate ferocity of true believers. Vincent's ship rocked as it took a direct hit from a KRX dreadnought. "Shields at 30%, an officer shouted. "We've got boarders on deck 7. Vincent turned to see Bellows, who had insisted on joining the mission, despite his injuries. The Binar elder's eyes glowed with determination. "I have a solution," Bellows said, his fingers flying over a nearby console. "But the cost will be high." Before Vincent could respond, klaxons blared throughout the ship. Warning: atmospheric venting in progress. All personnel, secure life support systems. Vincent watched in horror as the Deck 7 camera feeds showed Kronchian borders being sucked into the void of space. But his own crew remained safe, protected by emergency force fields. Bellows. Vincent breathed. You didn't have to. The Binar elder met his gaze steadily. We all must make sacrifices for the greater good. As the last of the separatist ships fell or fled, Vincent surveyed the aftermath. The coalition had won, but at a steep price. He knew that this victory was just the beginning of a long, arduous journey. Back on refuge, the summit reconvened. The news of the blockade's defeat, coupled with the Allies' decisive action, had shifted the mood. Even skeptical delegates now leaned forward, eager to hear what came next. Commander Nolan stepped up to the podium, his presence commanding instant attention. The recent crisis has exposed our vulnerabilities, he began, but it has also shown us the path forward. He outlined the proposal for a unified military command, emphasizing the joint leadership between himself and the Binar strategist Camos. As he spoke, Vincent watched the faces in the crowd, seeing hope and possibility replace fear and suspicion. One by one, representatives stood to voice their support. Even hardline factions grudgingly acknowledged the pragmatic strength of the new arrangement. As the coalition took shape, Leilani and Runa worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Their investigation uncovered a web of cabal influence that ran deeper than anyone had imagined. Look at this, Runa said, gesturing to a holographic display. They had operatives in every major port, every trade hub. No wonder they were able to manipulate things so effectively. Leilani nodded grimly. We'll need to rebuild these systems from the ground up. It's the only way to be sure as days turned to weeks. The coalition's influence grew. More worlds pledged their support, drawn by the promise of security and stability. But with each step forward, the resistance intensified. Reports came in of terrorist attacks on coalition outposts, sabotage of vital infrastructure. Behind it all lurked the shadow of Goran, the Cabal's new leader. Vincent stood before the newly formed advisory council, his face etched with determination. We've won many battles, he said, but the war for the galaxy's soul is just beginning. Vincent concluded, his eyes scanning the faces of the advisory council as the meeting adjourned. Bellows approached Vincent, his cybernetic implants glowing softly. We Binars have been analyzing the situation. We believe we have a solution to neutralize Goran and his Cabal remnants. Vincent raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Bellows gestured to a nearby holographic display. We propose a direct assault on Goran's base of operations. Our intelligence suggests he's holed up in a fortified asteroid outpost. A frontal assault. That seems risky, Vincent mused. Not quite, Bellows replied. We've developed a plan that combines Binar precision with human ingenuity. A small, elite strike team, in and out before they know what hit them. Hours later, Vincent stood in the hangar bay, watching as the strike team made final preparations. Binar commandos checked their specialized equipment, while human Black Ops specialists ran through last-minute briefings. Commander Nolan approached, his face grim. You sure about this, Vincent? It's a hell of a gamble. Vincent nodded. Sometimes you have to roll the dice. Goran needs to be stopped, and this might be our best shot. The strike team's ship disappeared into the void of space, leaving Vincent and the others to wait tense. Hours passed as they monitored the mission's progress through sporadic encrypted transmissions. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the command center. We're detecting a massive data surge across all networks, a technician shouted. Bellos's eyes widened in horror. It's a virus. Goran must have released it as a failsafe. Vincent's mind raced. Can we contain it? Not entirely, Bellows replied, his fingers flying over a console, but we can mitigate the damage. Vincent, we need to vent life support on some of our settlement ships, create firewalls. Vincent swallowed hard, understanding the implications. Do it. As Bellows implemented the desperate measures, reports flooded in from across coalition space supply networks crashed, communication grids went dark. The virus tore through system after system. In the midst of the chaos, Runa burst into the command center, her silver eyes gleaming with determination. "I have an idea," she announced. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance." Vincent turned to her. "What do you have in mind?" "We integrate the virus into a controlled nanotech environment," Runa explained. "Let it rewrite itself into a defensive matrix." Nolan shook his head. "That's insane. The risks are less than doing nothing," Vincent interrupted. He locked eyes with Runa. What followed was a frantic race against time. Lilani and her Atrian engineers worked alongside Binar specialists, constructing an isolated quantum datascape. They channeled the virus into this virtual playground, watching with bated breath as it mutated and evolved. There were setbacks, moments when it seemed the experiment would fail catastrophically, but finally, after hours of nail-biting tension, success. The virus transformed, becoming an adaptive, self-improving cyber defense system. As the immediate crisis passed, Vincent stood before a gathering of allied leaders. The mood was somber but resolute. "Today, we faced our greatest challenge yet," Vincent began. "But in doing so, we've proven that our strength lies in our unity and our ability to come together in the face of adversity." He paused, looking out over the assembled dignitaries. "It's time we made that unity official. I propose the formation of the Concordant Systems Alliance, a federation built on the principles that have carried us through these dark times." As murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber, Vincent couldn't help but smile. They had weathered the storm, and while Goran might still be out there, plotting in the shadows, Vincent knew that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The newly christened Guardians of the Concordant stood ready, their ships outfitted with the power of the cybernetic defense matrix. As Vincent watched them prepare for their first patrol, he felt a sense of cautious optimism. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in a long while, the future looked bright. The Concordant Systems Alliance ushered in an era of unprecedented cooperation and progress. For decades, the once fractured galaxy flourished under the banner of unity. But peace, as history had shown time and again, was a fragile thing. On the eve of a landmark diplomatic mission to the Zerith system, Vincent stood in his quarters aboard the flagship Harmony, gazing at the stars beyond. His hair had grayed, lines etched deeper into his face, but his eyes still held the same determination they had when the alliance was formed. A chime at the door preceded Runa's entrance. "The Binar delegation is ready, Vincent. Bellows sends his regard." Vincent nodded, a small smile crossing his face. After all these years, he's still a vital part of this alliance. As they made their way to the hangar, Vincent couldn't shake a sense of unease. The Zerith were notoriously isolationist, and this mission represented years of careful negotiation. Success could open up vast new possibilities for the Alliance. Failure could unravel everything they'd worked for. The diplomatic transport gleamed under the hangar lights, its sleek form a testament to the combined engineering prowess of multiple species. Bellows stood at the foot of the boarding ramp, his cybernetic implants pulsing softly. "Are you sure you don't want a military escort?" Vincent asked, clasping the Binar elder's hand. Bellows shook his head. "We must show trust to earn trust, old friend. The Zerith will respond better to an unarmed delegation." As the transport lifted off, Vincent watched it shrink to a pinprick against the stars. He couldn't have known it would be the last time he'd see Bellows alive. The attack came without warning. One moment, the diplomatic channel crackled with routine status updates. The next, alarms blared across the Harmony's bridge. "Unidentified vessel on intercept course," a sensor officer shouted. "It's on a collision trajectory." The view screen flared white as the assassin ship rammed the transport at full speed. When the glare faded, only debris remained. In the days that followed, the Alliance reeled. Binar and Atrian salvage teams combed the wreckage, searching for answers. It was Runa who made the breakthrough, her silver eyes wide as she burst into the emergency council chamber. "We found this," she said, placing a small device on the table. "It's Bellows's cortical implant, and it contains everything." The implant's data painted a chilling picture. In his final moments, Bellows had witnessed the face of their attacker Goran, the Cabal leader they'd thought long defeated. But more than that, the implant held Belos's last thoughts, his final plea to the galaxy help unite. As the recording played, Belos's familiar voice filled the chamber. Do not let my passing be the spark that reignites old hatreds. Remember why we came together. Remember what we stand for. The council erupted into argument. Some called for immediate retaliation against Goran and his followers. Others argued for caution, fearing a return to the chaos of years past. Through it all, Vincent sat silent, his mind racing. It was then that an unexpected voice cut through the din. Senda, a human-binar hybrid from the outer settlements, stood to address the council. Her dual heritage was evident in her features, human eyes set above the distinctive binar cranial ridges. We have a choice, Senda began, her voice steady. We can honor Belos by living up to the ideals he believed in, or we can throw away everything we've built in a quest for vengeance. She outlined a plan so audacious it left the council stunned. Using the residual psychic imprint in Belos's implant, she proposed a dangerous meld, a merging of minds that would preserve the Binar Elder's consciousness within her own. It's not without risk, she admitted, but it may be our only chance to keep Belos's wisdom alive, to guide us through this crisis. The procedure was unlike anything attempted before. For hours, Runa and a team of Atrian scientists worked to stabilize the meld as Senda's vital signs fluctuated wildly. When it was done, Senda opened her eyes and spoke with two voices. We are one, she said, Belos's familiar cadence overlaying her own, and we have much work to do. In the turbulent days that followed, Senda became a living symbol of unity. She walked a precarious line, using the threat of her own demise and with it, the final loss of Belos to force a fragile peace. Standing before the full assembly of worlds, Senda issued her ultimatum. You can chase revenge and lose everything we fought for, or you can uphold the principles that brought us together. The choice is yours. It was a gamble, but one that paid off. The alliance held, though not without dissent and unrest. Goran and his depleted forces faded back into the shadows, a threat to be dealt with another day. As the immediate crisis passed, Vincent found Senda alone in the Harmony's observation deck, staring out at the stars. How are you holding up? He asked softly. Senda turned, a sad smile on her face. We are adjusting, she replied, the dual nature of her existence evident in her words. It's not easy, balancing two minds in one body, but it's necessary. Vincent nodded, understanding the weight of her sacrifice. What happens now, Senda said, her gaze returning to the vista before them. We build, we grow, and we face whatever challenges come our way together. As they stood there, watching the galaxy spread out before them, Vincent knew that the road ahead would be demanding and tough. But with Senda as their guide, embodying the best of what the Alliance stood for, he dared to hope for a future brighter than any they'd imagined before. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.